My first interaction with senior care and searching for options was for my grandmother who lived in Washington State. I lived in Nebraska. And my dad called and informed me that she could no longer live independently at home, and asked if I could be helpful in figuring out what we could, where she could go next. And quite frankly, my husband, Heath, worked in the senior living industry. I was pretty savvy. I was a smart, researcher. I did not think it would be very hard. So I confidently said yes, and was quickly had a rude awakening of how hard that process was. This cannot possibly be the experience that everyone is going through. And so I really felt a pull to jump in and do something about it.
Welcome to the Answers for Elders radio show.
And welcome everyone to Answers for Elders Radio Network, heard across the USA. Today is all about making decisions. And, I am going to go back to my original journey as a family caregiver. And one of the things that I used to say was, if I just had the resources, I could make the right decisions for my mom. And yet, how do you find those resources? How do you understand, what they do, number one, what their lingo is, what the language is, how, what is going to be in alignment with my values and with my mom's values? So if you're a family member and you're in this quandary of, I want to do right like my, for my loved one, just like what I was like with my mom. It was a waiting decision. It was very weighing on my shoulders. And I always second guessed myself because, again, I didn't feel like I had all the resources. And so Answers for Elders came to be, yes, in 2009. But one of the things that we're really excited about is a new resource that we want to make you all aware with. And that is seniorcarefinder.com. And we are here today with its founder and CEO, Christie Stukenholtz. And Christie, welcome to Answers for Elders.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you so much for having me and for the great resource you provide to many people across the nation.
We are so complimentary. And, I always say in our industry, we're not competitors, we're co-competitors. We work together. And, I think there's going to be some exciting things for our listeners to learn about of how Answers for Elders and Senior Care Finder will be working together. And I'm looking forward to the future and how we can kind of mesh together in creating an amazing, credible partnership for families across the USA. Because, Christie, one of the things that, you and I both have is we have a personal story that brought us into this world. You took care of a loved one as well, did you not?
Yes. So a lot of people find themselves in this industry after a personal experience. And, the truth is, it is a part of life, right? And if we haven't experienced it yet, it's likely that we will, whether for ourselves or for someone that we love so much. Very true. My first interaction with senior care and searching for options was for my grandmother who lived in Washington State. I lived in Nebraska. And my dad called and informed me that she could no longer live independently at home, and asked if I could be helpful in figuring out what we could, where she could go next. And quite frankly, my husband, Heath, worked in the senior living industry. I was pretty savvy. I was a smart, researcher. I did not think it would be very hard. So I confidently said yes, and was quickly had a rude awakening of how hard that process was. And we were fortunate, to get on a plane and rent a car and drive around to a number of different communities and tour them, many of which did not look anything like, the few pictures I found online. And, ultimately found a great place for her. But that flight home, I told Heath, I said, it was 2015. And I said, this cannot possibly be the experience that everyone is going through. Not even a place to see a comprehensive list of my results or really understand the differences of care types or how you pay for it. It's a big, confusing world. And so that's really what tipped me off to thinking,
Mhm.
there's no way everyone's going through it like this. And if, you know, if I can't be the one to care for my mom or my grandma, it's a really, really big deal who that person is or community is.
Yeah.
And so I really felt a pull to jump in and do something about it.
Well, it's interesting because the general public, quote unquote, they see commercials on, on TV. Give us a call on an 800 number and somebody's standing by to help you. Okay, first of all, it makes me angry because number one, all they are is glorified salespeople. Number two, they know nothing about your values. They know nothing about your care plan, what is most important to you. They don't know anything at that point about your financial situation until they take you down this rabbit hole, right? And they only refer to communities that will pay them a big finder's fee. Right. And so, yes, they're a quote unquote free service, but
Yeah.
what is the real cost you're paying? Because you are in a situation where you're not you're not able to find those right kinds of resources. And so, one of the things I love about your site, seniorcarefinder.com, is really this objective, non-biased information that you can access right away locally. And obviously that, that came from the need of families. And I'm assuming that, with your experience, are you finding that fulfilling the need in families, and how does that come together?
It's amazing how, once we launched this site into the world, it is amazing how quickly it was filling a need. And that, ironically, we launched the site in 2020, the summer of 2020, not knowing that COVID would be coming. But it ended up being interesting timing because it wasn't a time that you could go in and walk through a community and tour a community. And it was also a time that communities and providers were trying to level up their, marketing efforts in a digital way so that they could get connected with those folks that couldn't be, come and walk through their doors like so often they were able to before. We have millions of users that leverage our platform to get directly connected to providers. And I think that, speaks for the need in and of itself.
Well, and I always subscribe to the adage, nobody knows your loved one better than you do. And the fact that if you have somebody that's on an 800 number helping to make decisions on your behalf, that really is only giving you what they want you to see, it doesn't serve anybody in your family. And that's where I get really angry because it is an injustice to our seniors. And of course, those are the organizations that have the big money. The hedge funds buy them out, right? And they are in a scenario where they are, have thousands of, of providers out there that are kind of have a gun to their head that they have to honor that. But yet, in many cases, it's overwhelming for families. And I know for me, I started off with that 800 number. And one of the things that happened to me, I'm in Washington State. So, Puget Sound, there's a peninsula on the other side. So what they do is they take a radius of, well, I wanted Linwood, Washington, which is North Seattle. I'm in the greater Seattle area. I had communities calling me in the radius from across Puget Sound, from Port Angeles, and from, there's no way. I mean, we're talking, and yet here I have just a little while to find my mother a place. And what had happened was that I was getting overwhelmed with all these marketing people calling me from hither and yon. And that was not helping me at all. It was stressing me out to no end. And I remember this just horrible taste in my mouth of, wow, this is really, really, really overwhelming. And
you probably didn't know that's what you were getting into.
No,
right?
I didn't know. And I didn't think about the questions that I needed to ask when I was touring the community. I didn't know what I needed to know before I met. I didn't understand what kind of real long-term needs my mom would have because, again, they just said, we're releasing you to assisted living. And yet I didn't think about, well, she's got wound issues. She needs to be close to wound care. She needs to be close to hospitalization. There were certain things that I didn't even think about at the time because nobody helped me do that. Right.
Yes.
So we're in the same boat.
Yes, absolutely. And, now consumers, in my opinion, are much more educated. They're much more, because they're doing research on their own, right? And they want to learn and, gather information, and they don't want to be sold to. And we really study the behavior of that person and try to meet them where they're at. So that's really the need that Senior Care Finder is trying to fill, is being a place that people can go, take a deep breath, and really start educating themselves and start that process that can so many times feel very overwhelming.
So everyone, go to seniorcarefinder.com, and Christie and I will be right back right after this. Did you know that you can discover hundreds of podcasts in our library on senior care? So visit our website and discover our decision guides that will help you also navigate decision making. Find us at answersforelders.com.